As my quest to catch up on things I missed marches on, I was directed towards a wonderful little show called Happy Sugar Life. With a title like that, you can just imagine how fluffy and cute it is, with sweet characters doing the most adorable things and having all sorts of fun. You just want to pinch their miserable little cheeks, don't you? What's that? My visuals are telling a different story. And this joke's been done to death by more talented reviewers? Well, shit. And here I planned on doing the whole video like that. Since my fun's ruined, I guess I'll just have to do an honest, heartfelt review, without laying my snark on as thick as Yugimoto's hair gel. Let's dive into Happy Sugar Life. Spoilers ahead. Adapted from a horror manga running from 2015 to, well, at the time of this recording, the present, Happy Sugar Life received an anime adaptation in the summer of 2018 by Studio Ezola. Helmed by Kusakawa Keizo, director of a bunch of stuff nobody cared about, except for maybe these. You fucking perverts. Notably director of Inukami, an older series I remember finding somewhat entertaining, though the years in alcoholism may have clouded my judgment. Naoyama Nobuyoshi also worked on this series as a director. I'd say more, but his directing credit consists of this and a shitty fan service show, so this is probably his career highlight. But honestly, where this series gets its shine, besides the source material, is certainly coming from Machida Toko, a seasoned series composer who's worked on such greats as Is This a Zombie?, Geijutsu Art Design Class, and a little-known series called Fucking Lucky Star. There's the secret ingredient to success right there. Now I'm gonna cut to the chase. Horror anime is my jam. There's not enough of it, and in a market saturated by comedy, slice of life, and shitty fantasy, I'll take as much as I can get. And this series did not disappoint, with an early delivery on exactly what I was in for. The sweet slice of life aesthetic is delightfully disarming and contrasts brilliantly against the dark tones. Another series that did well with this was Madoka Magica, though the character designs aren't exactly as inspired here. It has a rather plain style for the entire series, which I'd normally dock some Monopoly Money Funbuck points for, but I think that having such an ordinary style lends towards the atmosphere. This isn't a monster-themed horror series dealing with Lovecraftian horrors or witches playing with fate. It's a story about someone who's very broken doing horrible acts in what is essentially our world, so having a basic design adds to that sense. Besides, it's not as though they didn't want to have a style. There's scenes and imagery dripping with artistic choices that any art school dropout could jizz over. Episode 11 showcases exactly how good the art direction can be. For instance, the way Sato's aunt is portrayed early on entirely in flashbacks, or Shio's parents with a distorted voice and scribbled out faces, which is an early appearance multiple characters take on, is used to great effect to show people who have had a negative impact on characters. There's references to one's heart being like a candy jar, breaking when pained, full with sweet things when loved, empty when... empty. Look, they're not all winners. Candy has a prevalence in the show, where sensations are described as bitter when someone is lustful or a liar, and sweet when it's their true love. A constant fixation on eating sweet things or comfort foods when Sato's with Shio springs to mind as well. It's clearly drawing a parallel between how good the one you love makes you feel, and if you didn't notice the concussion from the metaphors bashing your skull in, Happy Sugar Life, oh my god, I get it! Continuing with themes, what I think the show does well is its portrayal of domestic abuse and how it perpetuates. If anything, I feel this is the core message of the show. Not just physical, but emotional. The burden parents put on their children with expectations, the scars left by thrusting your life's ideology upon them, and what one thinks is right is ruining a child's entire outlook for the rest of their life. How one bad decision can ruin a young person's life. The creepy themes, gore, and disturbing imagery is saying something here. Something that requires a level of grittiness to tell and take seriously. Sexual abuse of a minor by a person in a position of power, corrupting youth with your own twisted worldview, and the abused becoming abusers. So kudos for using edge in an effective way, show. So I guess the big question is, did I enjoy it? Yes, I did. Did I love it? No, it could have done better in places. Did I love her? God tier waifu. Oh, the money I'd pay to be killed by her. While most love a basic bitch tsundere, the trash tier kuderes, and the absolutely disgusting dere-deres, I'll take a good old yandere any day of the week. Sato isn't just a nice girl who's too loving like the typical yandere stereotype, she's a broken individual ruined through years of emotional and psychological abuse and programming by a dysfunctional aunt. She acts like a normal high school girl, popular, cute, and constantly getting hit on with a friendly demeanor, but it's all an act. She rarely feels emotion and does her best to control them when she does. It isn't until she meets Shio and... shit. Hold up. Content warning. This show contains an uncomfortable amount of pedophilic tones for casuals. You need to at least be a level 3 weeb before you can handle this stuff without wincing. So yeah, bear with me, there's a lot to unpack. Until she meets Shio, an elementary school girl the main character is totes and platonic lesbians with. You see, they're both in a similar situation, abused by their parents/guardians, and upon meeting one another they connect. Sato feels complete for the first time in her life with Shio, believing it's her true love. Shio feels the same, having been on the run from her abusive father and abandoned by her mother. Sato takes the girl home with her and they live together like a married couple, though the show doesn't showcase them being intimate, so take that for what it's worth. Unlike the last show I reviewed, these characters aren't redeemable or likable. Each is portrayed as a monster doing horrible things for their own selfish ends. So in that regard, the horrible things they do and disturbing quirks are what you'd want to see in a horror series. It's meant to unsettle, so it's accomplishing its goal. Keep that in mind because it gets worse. Sato as a character is a wonderful mix of demented and bubbly. A girl who's normal on the surface, but when pushed too far or when prying into her life when she doesn't want you to, she flips, immediately becoming calmly sadistic, twisting a verbal knife just the way she needs to bend those around her to her whims. She doesn't invite most of the horrible things that happen in the series upon herself, but she lacks any restraint in how she deals with them, taking whatever lengths she deems necessary. But my issue is she's not particularly deep. None of the characters in this series are. Most are defined by their one character trait, with only Shio undergoing any growth, which is a missed opportunity. The trauma that defines these characters' personalities would make for some interesting arcs, and isn't explored at all, though that may just be me playing at optimism for some cathartic relief. Let's transition into the opening for a bit. I fucking love it as a whole package. Music alternating through bright and dark, sweet and hypnotic, with a beautiful art aesthetic. It really evokes the childlike naivete of the characters while showing the dark depths they'll go to. I wish I could say the same for the rest of the sound design though. It feels like a hodgepodge of recycled anime music at times, where, I shit you not, they reused an iconic song from Bleach. Did you think no one would notice that? That's a mark of laziness in an otherwise fine production that I actually couldn't stand. You've got a horror show. Atmosphere is a key component to that, and music builds that more effectively than visuals do. Don't half-ass it, please. Then again, the production company has nothing else under their belt and a team of relative unknowns, so there's a chance they simply didn't have the budget. Excuses aside, let's talk about the plot of this series. Though it's not so hefty it'll take much time, the series follows our sugar girl. I want to clarify I did not choose to call her that. Sato, which coincidentally means sugar in Japanese. She's initially introduced as a normal girl who works 2 jobs with the odd mention that she used to be rather slutty, but quit that when she found her special someone. With prying by her best friend, it's revealed that she's supporting her special someone by working at a maid cafe and starting another job at a diner-style restaurant. Upon getting off her second job, she rushes home to introduce us to the one the series had been so vague about up until that point. Her special someone is an elementary school girl named Shio she's deeply in love with. They're cute together, taking baths, palling around like a typical anime big sister and little sister would, with the added perk of reciting wedding vows to one another every night and sleeping in the same bed. In case you're wondering, the elementary school kid is presented as completely aware of their relationship being that of platonic lovers. She actively engages in it, and I'm not here to argue about ethics right now. I'm simply reporting how it's presented. We'll just put that on a shelf for a bit. The first episode heats up with Sato's second job taking most of the screen time, where she's quickly adapting, enough that the resident hot boy asks her out. She promptly rejects him, saying that she already has someone she's in love with. Quick mention that after that scene, he's taken away by the MILF manager into her office. Right after that confession, hot boy Mitsuboshi doesn't come to work for a few weeks, and Sato finds herself being worked to the bone. Not to mention everyone starts treating her like trash. But due to her need for money, she toughs it out for a sweet, sweet overtime paycheck. This causes her to be late getting home, and her little waifu Shio is always asleep, meaning she spends no time with her. When she gets her check and she doesn't have the extra pay, she confronts the manager about it, to which the manager reveals herself to be a massive cunt, chewing Sato out for stealing away the love of her precious subordinates. It's at this point Sato breaks and flips into a god tier yandere, getting her manager to confess she's cheating her out of her pay, expecting her to bow to her whims, and when Sato pushes, admits to raping Mitsuboshi. Smart girl Sato gets this all on her cell phone camera and tells the manager to pay her, releases Mitsuboshi from the closet in the office, and quits. That suggests the first episode, and that lays out exactly what to expect from this character. She's a sweet girl, as long as you don't fuck with her happy sugar life. Oh shit, that's what that means. Skimming over the rest of the episodes, many of which reaffirm this sort of behavior in Sato, and spoiling each episode isn't exactly what I'm here to do. The basic plot follows her trying to avoid others finding out about her relationship with Shio. Shio's estranged older brother is looking for her after Shio's mother abandoned her due to fear that she would end up abusing the girl like her father did to the whole family, perpetuating the cycle of abuse there. Further, Mitsuboshi starts working at Sato's first job with her, and we find out that his rape and sexual abuse left some lasting scars, as he's now unable to stand being touched by older women. He becomes a pedophile. I mean, it's disgusting and it's not presented as okay, plus the circumstances that lead him to that are laid out logically, so honestly, it's an interesting angle to take his character. He becomes obsessed with Shio, having seen the posters her brother's handing out while looking for her. Finally, we have Sato's best friend who wants to get to know her more, and is really just a pretty normal girl with an obsessive mother. She's honestly the only decent person in the entire series, since despite being a slut, she shows real compassion for those she's close to. Upon meeting Sato's aunt, which is a good time to bring her up, she's creepy in all the right ways, a prostitute who accepts all desires thrust upon her happily, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. She has little restraint and will pounce on people inappropriately. Not to mention she's just an off-putting person with how she talks to others. She defines Sato through duality, one who views love as special while the other accepts all love. They don't get along and Sato hates her aunt with passion. Getting back to her friend, she says something she shouldn't have, calling Sato's aunt weird because despite hating her aunt, Sato is related to her and like her in many ways. That ruins their relationship, which hits her friend hard since she considered Sato her best friend. She ends up getting pretty close to Shio's brother, and in order to help him find his sister, points him in Sato's direction when discovering Shio's whereabouts. Knowing Sato at this point, it's pretty obvious where that ends up. It all comes to a head when Shio and Sato realize they can't stay there anymore and are planning to flee the country together. Mitsuboshi and Shio's brother track them down as they stage their deaths with an arson attempt to burn down their apartment. This ends with Shio choosing Sato over her own family, and them attempting to commit suicide when they're trapped at the top of the burning building. No one has a happy ending here, and for characters like this, they don't deserve it. So let's start unpacking my issues with this series. Well, pedophilia. It doesn't bother me as much as it should. The thing is, it's not my biggest issue with the series since it's not portrayed as right. Though Sato and Shio's relationship is also portrayed as acceptable in their eyes, but is that just the twisted perception of the characters? Ultimately, I don't really care about that particular aspect because that's not what makes this romance suck. Shio's age is practically irrelevant to the plot since she's mostly an object of affection. She lacks agency until the end, and really my biggest issue with the romance between her and Sato is it's non-existent. They just say they're in love with one another, but why? They met each other when they were both at low points in their lives, but nothing really makes them special or unique for one another like the show presents it. Like, the notion of true love is self-explanatory and should be a reason enough. Granted, the characters themselves aren't the most sensible, but as a story being told to the audience, I should at least feel some investment through these characters' eyes. Finally, the ending. Is it bad that I thought this show would have done better to kill the kid? I honestly call it bullshit, as a teenage girl's body would not be enough to shield an elementary school kid from dying after a 12-story fall. That's minor, I know, but it really doesn't change much, and really irritated my inner pedant. There's a lot to like in this series. It has a great sense of mystery and can really nail the creepiness in characters without resorting to all-out violent insanity, and shows how complex relationships can be between those bound through familial ties and don't necessarily like. But what holds this series back from greatness for me is the execution in the smaller aspects. The characters themselves are flat, with a single motivator that rarely deviates from their one emotion. Only Shio has any sort of growth, standing up to Sato just to demand that she's not treated like an object, and Sato gives in with little resistance. I would tell people to watch this series if they're a nut like me and enjoy demented imagery, but for mass appeal, like a one-armed prostitute giving a handjob in an orgy, your mileage will vary. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. If you somehow liked what you saw, why don't you hit the like button? If you somehow like me, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.